All right, so I welcome you all to this recorded session for Thursday. So the topic for today, or the topic that we were discussing, I hope you all remember that we were talking about something like working with forms in Express. Let me just show that to you. So we are in our week 5, and we were talking about some of the HTML forms. And in our last session, we have talked about the forms, we have talked about different controls and things like that. So today we will just practically start talking about how to process all those things and how to do from processing by using the ExpressJS, right? So for that, what I have done is that I have just basically set up one of the environment over here. And this environment, let me just tell you what I have done over here. It's just I've just created a folder with the name week4. I have done the installation of Express, just letting you people know so that you people can understand what's going on. I've installed the Express over here, and also I have installed the nodemon. You remember I have talked about that in one of the lecture, that we can just make our application run continuously. So we have talked about that, and now we are running this server, and the server is running at 8080. And now we are starting our today's lecture. So okay, so this lecture, this will be very important with respect to your assignment 2 as well. I hope you are working on your assignment 2, and this will help you out in their assignment 2 also, because some of these aspects that I'll be touching over here today are related to your assignment part as well. And I have received a few questions as well, but let's see that how we will be just working about that. Anyhow, so this is the setup right now, and now what I want from you people is that we'll be just working in a way that I have this node modules, of course, package.json and all these things set up. Now what I'm doing inside this week 5, I'm just creating another folder over here, and I will call this folder views. If you have seen assignment 2, you are maybe asked to do that, or anyhow, if not, we'll be now working about. Now, if I go to this views and I want to create maybe a file that I want to show, for example, to start with, so I can create a new file. You can call it whatever. You can call it index. I'm calling it home.html. You can call anything at all, right? So this will be an HTML file that we'll be displaying. So let's have a quick code of HTML, and just the basic thing that are needed. And I will give head, title, using forms and JSON data. So we'll talk about the JSON data as well today. So that's why I'm just mentioning it, using forms and the JSON data. And here, what we can do right now for nothing, for nothing, using forms and JSON, right? Just save this file. So what I've done effectively is that I have created one file inside this views folder, and you know that we have talked about that. If I want to access that file from my server, so I'll have to just create a get method, which will be typically doing all this for us. So now let's come back over here. We have got the app application that we have. So first of all, what I'm doing is that I want to, so you know that here I'll be needing the path, path module. So let's go on top and just add that one. Path is equal to require and path. So you know why? Because I will be needing this path over here. Okay, so let's talk about this. Now I say get the root. Whenever some user hits the root, now I have to define a function, and you know we can use this arrow like notation or whatever you are comfortable in, but that's always good to use this arrow like notation, right? So this gives us always the good chance of saving some lines of code. Anyhow, Right. So what I want to do here is that I want to send file, right? And how to do that? If you remember path.join, we use underscore underscore twice, dir name, if you remember that module, and inverted commas. And the file that I want to show is inside views folder, views slash home.html, right? So what I'm doing is that I'm asking again, it's all new, it's all old for you people, and you have already done that a lot of time. So let's see if that shows me the output. Okay, localhost and 8080. Now you see using forms and JSON. So we are very much getting our HTML page over here, the page that we have used, and the page that I wanted to access over here. Right? So far, there is no special thing. Now, what we want to do effectively over here, and again, as I said, that you would be needing that type of thing in your assignment as well, that we will be creating a file, or we will be creating a JSON file. There we can store data, and we can extract that data into our program, into our some of the pages, and we can show that JSON data. And as I'm again mentioning that in assignment 2 you would have seen that. So you have to do over there that. So now to do that, first of all, let's try to do something, and let's try to create another folder in our week 5, and let's not right now, it might be creating that inside that one. So I'm just selecting this one. So now you can call a folder data. So usually we'll be making a folder with data, and inside that folder I want to create a file, and you can call this file whatever you want. What I am calling it is, for example, I say it, for example, whatever you can say, characters. So I will be talking about certain characters.json. So we've created a file, characters.json, right? Characters.json. It can be anything at all, right? And now inside this character.json, what we want to do here is that I want to create an array of objects, for example, and I want to that how to store our JSON data. For example, if I say that I want to create this first object, and I say, for example, you can character ID, you can just assign an ID to a character maybe, and you can assign the first name, for example, and you say Alex, my favorite name always, because it starts with A. So you say that, for example, I want to store this Smith or anything at all. It's up to you. And let's write another field, email, and that email may be the first character and abc.com, right? I'm just doing this for the first time, and then since we are talking about our characters, there will be different characters. So we'll be just differentiating our characters as well, and we'll be just checking certain functions. So I say another property is hero. Is that character Alex our hero or not? And I say, for example, false. Alex is not our hero, right? Okay, so what we need to do, and that you can just copy and paste this data from different anywhere if you want to have. So let me just copy this one and paste one time, and then paste one more time, and then one more time. So we have just used it 4 times, for example. Now you see here, let's go to the top, and char ID was 1, and I can just manually, I can just set it right now, and I can see, for example, Alex2, I just like too much this name. So Alex2, and I say that Alex2 is a hero, for example, for us, right? And let's talk about chart3 and Alex3, Smith3, and Alex3 at ABC, and this is not our hero. Let's talk about 4, and I'd say Alex4 and Smith4 and Alex4, and this is our hero, for example, right? So I've just created a JSON file where I've got certain JSON data, and you know that how to just create this JSON data. I hope you are familiar with that and you have already worked in that. So what I've done is that I have created one JSON data file over here, and this JSON data file is the file that I will be using to to work on that. And so this is our data of our program that will be that will be storing, that will be displaying to the user. And in today's session, what we'll do is that by using that form that I've talked about, I will try to add that data into the form as well, right? So both, all of the things that we'll be just doing. Okay, for doing that, one of the file that we'll be needing is basically a file that would be handling all the data related issues, our all data related issues, like how I can just extract that data from this .json, and I can display that data into my pages. For that, we need to have one extra file over here, as you have seen. For example, let me just see that if it is creating this file inside the week folder. So now, if you have seen that in the assignment, you are also required data service.js, right? So there's a file, JavaScript file, that will create data service.js, and this file will be responsible for interacting with my data. And this file, I would be using this data service to extract data from maybe from my JSON file and things like that. So I hope you are making sense of it. Now, what we have to do here is that, for example, first of all, I'll have to just create a, I have to require a file, file component, file system. Why file system? Because now here I'm talking about that I will be using this filing, and I will be having those files, and I will be just reading that file because there's a JSON file that I want to read out. Okay, so if I do that, and now here I'm defining one of the variable, like an array, empty array, and that empty array will be handling what? The data from my JSON file. So this empty array will be talking about that. Okay, so now if you remember module.exports, I will do what? Module.exports and initialize. Now what does that mean? I am trying to initialize this with a function, of course, and this function will be responsible for reading out the data from my JSON file, right? So I am defining a function here that you can define by using any method. If you are comfortable, you can always define it by using the arrow method as well, or a function method, right? Now, interesting part. Whenever we are doing something like that, we will do what? This function will return promise. And we have talked about the promises. Why do we use them? That promises, they have basically those two features of resolve and reject. And here what we'll be doing is that we'll be just creating a promise that will go and try to read out my file. If it is successful to read that file, of course, it will come up with the data, or maybe the JSON data. And if it is not able to successfully read my file, it will be reject in a reject mode. So again, maybe in a read in a resolve mode or a reject mode. So what we'll do here is that we'll say that return a new promise, return new promise. And you remember, I want you to just go and have a look at our the code of that promise is over there. Okay, so now here we are defining resolve comma reject. Now using this function like syntax, like arrow syntax, right? I want to work on that, and let me just put that one. Sorry. So I'm asking it to return a new promise, and inside that promise, I'm calling another, like of course a method resolve reject, and this resolve reject method will be responsible now for reading out from my file. I hope that makes sense to everyone. Now, FS, what is that? Our file system, the module that we have put in, and read file, right? I wanted to read file, and if you see that it has different parameters, and one of the parameter, of course, the first one will be the path. So what is the path that I wanted to follow? I wanted to follow data / characters.json. Why is that? Because my data is basically inside characters.json. I hope that makes sense. The next parameter might be utf-8 right? And then the next parameter is a callback. So what this callback will do, right? So let me just put that over here, and I need to close that one as well. So now what this callback will do, of course, it will be doing that rejection or maybe acceptance or resolve. So now if I say if error occurs, do what? Can anyone guess what will happen? Of course, if error occurs, you have to do what? Reject. You remember we have talked about that we reject it, and I will return it from here. Hope makes sense. If what does that mean? You are reading a file and you are reading character.json, but you have got an error and you are not successfully able to receive the data out of it. If you are not receiving successfully data, what you do, if error has happened, so do what? You just reject and go in the reject state. Now, if that has not happened, like error has not come, so now I will use my array that I have defined at the top. Characters equal to, now characters equal to what? JSON.parse. This is one of the method, you know, that is used to parse JSON data. JSON.parse. So now it means that whatever data was received over here, since the error has not occurred, now the data has been received. Now you will just receive that data and parse that data by using JSON.parse and convert it into characters. I hope you're getting that. Like I am getting an array of values of all those values that have been coming from JSON parse. Right. So I hope that makes sense to everyone. Okay. So now what to do? Now what to do? That if that happens, of course, that happens means that now it has been successful. So if it is successful, let's call resolve. You remember resolve. So that will be resolved now. Why? Because now my data has been received successfully. I hope everyone is making sense of it. You can always put up the questions later on, like again, when you are looking at the video, and you can put up that question in maybe in that. So this is what we have just initialized a module. We are exporting this module, initializing data function which is returning a promise, and this promise return will do what? If it try to read a file characters.json, if it is successfully able to read that, it will return the data and resolve that in a characters. Like again, after parsing that JSON data into characters, it will just return that and so resolve that. And if there is an error occurred, it will just return an error over there. Now, I need to have a method that would provide this array or maybe this values to the calling party. Now, you see here, this is just initializing this export like this function. And now we need to have another function. And I will do what? Again, a module dot exports dot, for example, I'm creating a function get all characters. What does that mean? I need to have a function that I will be calling over there, and that function will be responsible for providing me all the characters, all the data that has come from, right? So inside that, again, a mix of that. So inside that function also, always remember that this will also return a promise. Return new promise. And inside that, let's call again resolve and reject parameters, and that same arrow-like function over here, right? So let's make it a body, and this will of course terminate. Okay, return, right? So now I'm returning another promise from a get all characters. So what does that mean? Whether maybe it is able to get some data, or maybe it is not able to get some data. So let's check that. If characters, how would I know? If I check its length. Length equals 0. If length equals 0, it means we are rejected, right? And you remember we can send data from that one as well. query return 0 results and return, right? And if that is not the case, what should be the other thing? Resolve and just send characters, because it is populated with all the characters. We know that it will be populated with all the characters over here. It will be populated with all the characters, right? And that character has been that data JSON, like data has been parsed JSON by using this JSON.parse function, and now that information is stored in the character. So we have just very much defined our data service, this data service file that is working in a way that it is initializing a function, and then what it is doing, it is just defining another function, get all characters, and we are exporting that function. So we need to call this initialize as well. We need to call this get all characters as well to make things work, right? So now let's talk about this this server file, how we want to just access this one, and how it will be accessing that. So the usual method is we call that that app.listen and HTTP port, whatever HTTP port we have defined. So we have different methods for that, but here we need to do something different. What we want it to initialize when the data has been received. What does that mean? First, let's look at how we will be calling that function, like calling that all those values, all those characters. How I would be accessing those values. Now come here, and we have to define another one. For example, if I say app.get, right? If someone call at characters, for example, I'm just making another route, characters, right? If someone call characters, our callback function over here, call a callback function. Now inside this callback function, you need to do what? You need to get the data. So data dot get, sorry, not data queue, data. Why it is not accepting this data? Should accept this. Data dot get all characters, and that is what I was saying you, that why it is not accepting this data over here. Anyone would like to tell me why it is not accepting this data over here? So why? Because we have created this data service, like service, but we don't have this data. Of course, I'm just trying to call this before even calling that. So because I've just created data over there. So now what I want to do here is that first of all, you need to require that file, and of course just create this data, because that data would be coming from our data service. So require data, sorry, data service.js, right? We need to require that file. Now this must have what? The data inside that. So again, that's why it was not recognizing it over here. So data dot, now if you see that, it will be just showing us that one. Okay. And another thing, as I said in the beginning, another thing, we want it to execute, we want it to work when this data has been received. Again, this file, we are just requiring this file, but we need, if we want to have that data before anything happens, we need to do something interesting over here. We won't be calling this app.listen in that way. Rather, what we do over here is that we'll call data.initialize. We'll check initialize. If data.initialize, then you remember function, and let me just call that. So if data has been initialized, like we are just calling data.initialize, then start our server, and that also is calling another callback. And what is that callback? Let's see what it will do. It is just console logging, same like this, just for the server, listening on, right? And since we are calling it on HTTP port, so we'll be just mentioning it plus HTTP port. So now what we are doing, that we are saying that if you have something like this, like before starting that, you need to check something, and you need to check what? You need to see that if data.initialize has been, like, data has been initialized or not, like so. And another thing important before just closing this one, this function, which function? This function, when this then is starting, we need to catch that. If you remember the syntax, you need to just go back and look at that, class where we discussed these promises and everything. Now, so function ERR. So we are defining a function over here, error, that will receive error, of course, if there is an error. So we'll say console.log unable to start server, and also we can just display the error message as well. Display the error. Right. So let's save this one. And this is restarting our server. Let's see if it comes up with the message. So, okay, so looks like what I've done, so again, so we have created a data service file, and this is data service.js, where we have just created this initialize and this get all characters function. And now what we wanted to do is that, for example, in our server file, we say that it should first check if data.initialize first of all, and that if that is possible, if that is running, then it will be doing what? It will be calling that function. Right? Why it is not okay? Oh, it says cannot find module data service.js. Okay, so this gives an error. Cannot find module data service.js. Why it is not able to? Okay, can anyone tell me why it is not calling it? Of course, you know what is problem. This data service has been like stored inside this data, and I wanted to put that inside this week, right? Week 5. So it has to be on the root. Okay, now let's see if that restarts. App crashed, waiting for file before starting. Okay, why not? Okay, so just copy and paste maybe has done a bit of trick for us. Yes, terminate this job and let's run this. So nodemon run, and what did we call it? Watch. I have called that watch. Using the wrong thing. Okay, just hold on a minute and let me just see that what is going on here. Did I use the right statement? Oh no, I use nodemon npm because I have just stored that in. So because I have stored that in package.json, so it should now run. Okay, file changes before starting. Waiting for file changes before starting. It is waiting for file changings. What file changings it's waiting for? Interesting. Module not found. Okay, it says module not found. Which module is not found by that one? Server.js requires stack. Interesting. It still says that data service is not found. Maybe I have just used the wrong word, or I don't know. Data dash service and data dot service. Looks like name is correct. Data dot service, it's still there. and it says constant data service. What is the problem now? Data service, sometimes I misspell things. Let's see. Okay, again, it says that I am unable to find module data service.js. Interesting. Data service.js, it's added over here as well. Data looks like it has to just come its way. Maybe let me see. Hmm. Mhm. Why it is not finding this data service.js module? It is inside that. Let me just check that folder maybe. Yes, data service should be there now. I don't know why it is just doing that. Let me just check that. Dragon class week5 server.js. Interesting. So I'm on this watch. Okay, just for nothing. Let me just try that out. It will also give the same error, but what is it says? Cannot find module data service dot js, which is here. Let me just quickly have a rename for it, and let's just copy this one and paste this one here as a copy, and now rename this one. Let me rename it with data service 1.js. And have I changed that on server data service data dash service 1.js? It should work. Okay, so it should work. npm run not fun watch. Now it says that that's quite interesting, that it says that I'm unable to find this data service.js, which is there, which has to be there. That's interesting. Oh, okay. Looks like I need to put a relative path here. Maybe let's check that one. Okay, Okay, restarting due to issues, clean exit. Let's see now what it does. Okay, the value UTF, oh, UFT. I've just given UFT8. It has to be UTF-8, and where I have given that in my data service 1, of course. Now, oh, UTF, it's not UFT, UTF. Save this one. Okay, so now we are running, very much running with my server, and right. So let's talk about that. So now I was talking about like how to access that one. So I have just created a data service 1. Now I will just remove this file from here, delete. Yes, and why I want to delete? Because now I want to work on this old one, data service, because I was not giving the right path. Okay, so what happens is that now we have got this. Okay, now that has UTF, UFT. I need to change that one. Just quickly, I will do that, and that would be just a matter of just not UFT, UTF. Right now, it would be saved. Of course, now it will be running. Now come back to our server, and here I want to access this this file or these characters over here. Now inside that, what I will do, I have to do data dot get all characters. So you see that there is a function that we are calling. And again, we see we will just use that same syntax. Then if that comes on, so display that data. For displaying that data, I'm calling another, the callback function over here, right? And what I say here is that resource dot JSON and pass that data, right? So change that resource, like the data that has been received, convert that into JSON, like again, and respond it to the user. And again, we have used this then syntax. So we'll be using catch, and catch will be catching the error, of course. And if error occurs, what you need to do, we need to say res dot send error. Of course, we will send the error through that. Okay, so now I have, hopefully I am done with it. And now I have just defined a characters path. So let's see if we can access that one. So this is our server running, forms and JSON. And now if I go here and I try to find the path characters, do you see that I can see my all characters over here? So far, so good. Everyone understands that, hopefully. So now, just to give you a bit more practice for that, just to give you a bit more hint about that, let's talk about another function in our data service, for example. And what is that function? As I said, that I will be just creating, for example, there are certain heroes that I have. So let's go to the data server, and let's try to create another function over here. And this function, let me just copy and paste this one, same, and we'll change the code in between. Control C, I've just copied this one and I'm pasting this. Now I'm creating another method and I'm calling it get all heroes. So all those who have those heroes with their name, right? So they should be accepted. They should be coming over here. So now let's remove everything from the inside of the function and try to create that one. So that function will always, these functions will be returning what? A promise, a new promise. And now let's create maybe a variable all heroes equal to nothing, as we developed, characters array over there. Now I need to populate that. So for populating that, that how we can just populate it. I equal to 0, I less than characters. So we have to implement that on characters. So character dot length, right? And I plus plus. So I need to populate that one, right? As I said, that I will be populating that one. So okay, if characters of I, so no, there is a feature, like there is a property of is hero equals true. If you go and read that feature as true, you do what? So we do it all heroes dot push this character. I hope you got the point. So you check it. If it is hero, like for example, the character is hero, what you need to do is that you need to push that character into our all heroes. I hope you remember this push syntax of our, you know, of our JavaScript. You would have studied that in your hopefully in your Web222. Anyhow, so now if you see here, if all heroes dot length equals 0. So if there is no hero, for example, sometimes it might happen that there are no heroes, for example. So if there are no heroes, reject, and you say no heroes in your list, right? So you just return that. And of course, if that is not the case, you do resolve, and you do resolve as all heroes, right? So look like I'm missing something. I'm missing a bracket over here because that will close this promise over here, right? So still showing a problem. Okay, so first need to close this. Okay, let's see if it is closing. Oh, it's closing over here. So that means I need to close that one as well, because this will be the main function, right? So now we have just defined a function which will calculate, which will try to bring up the heroes from there. And of course, if it is bringing up the heroes, I need to have, for example, a path for that. So let's save this data service. Save this data service over here. Go to your main program, the main server. Copy this one. I need to have a path for not characters, but now for heroes. If user wants to know heroes about from my. Now, if they want to know about the heroes, so what I need to do over here is not get all characters. Rather, what I need is get all heroes. I've created that function over there. It's with E over there. So I've just made some spelling mistakes. Bear with me, right? Sometimes it happens. So it will just go and bring all that data from the heroes. Let's run this one, save this one, and check whether it is coming up with the heroes. So if I go here and I say heroes, am I writing the right spelling, or I've given OS? Yes, heroes. I have given the wrong spelling. Anyhow, so heroes is showing, only those two records. You remember Alex2 was our hero and Alex4 was our hero. So it's showing both of them as hero. So far, so good. I hope everyone is understanding that. So now, it is doing twofold thing. It is also showing us all the characters, be it hero or not. And what it is doing, it is just showing me those characters which are specifically heroes here. Oh, again, I'm sorry. Heroes, this one. My bad. So far, so good. I hope everyone understands that. And this is what it's basically. Now, if I ask you to add some more feature in it, you know that you would be able to do that. That, for example, if I ask you that all those people whose name is starting, whose name is starting with A or ending at something, so you can just always add a function. So what you have is you have got a data service, and again, after going through these things, you would feel that now you will be very good in your assignment, because assignment also asks for such type of things. And I hope now you understand that concept as well, right? So this is the beginning of us. And what we need to do today is that we have to just basically talk about the forms and everything. So now we will be talking about the forms and everything, right? Rather, let's make it a two-part video. So this will be first part of it, and I will use this one for in the second part to now reuse the form which we have to discuss. But again, I hope that has given you much help. So I'm ending this video over here, and then I'll start its part B, and then I'll record that and I'll share that with you.